Delia, thank you so much for coming and being part of Digital Narratives of Asia. So you've had an outstanding career. You've been held in high regard, and you still are.
Oh,
by international world leaders. Of course you are. So I'd like to find out, were there any particular mentors that influenced your idea of leadership and the way you have carried yourself on all these years?
I think it's an old story to say that my mother was a very strong influence in my life. She was a determined woman, and even the spacing of her children was regulated. So I got used to playing according to rules. And it was an early stage in my life that I felt, hey, things work if you do things according to plan, according to your thoughts about doing things right. In a way, she was like a missionary to all her children. And I think this had a very strong impact on all of us. And when we get together as siblings, we always talk about how regulated our lives were. But that was good.
So it's about planning. You think being a good leader is about planning and just thinking in advance and putting in place?
It's about planning, but it's also, I think, building so much credibility in yourself that you can rally people around you. My mother rallied us very quickly when we realized that what she was saying was quite all right, and that the children could follow. Planning, and in a way, it's a kind of a discipline, but again, leadership should be about being able to get people to rally with you, to be with you, but you must have the credibility to do things, and that you're able to do what you want other people to do, that you yourself can deliver what you expect other people to deliver.
So you're a very hands-on person, would you say? A very hands-on kind of leader?
Yes, sort of. People sometimes resent that, but in a sense, it makes people feel that they are confident that they can do it along with you because you are with them. And I think those are elements that is important. And I remember having all my staff at DFA. I think I instituted a practice to talk to everyone as much as I can. And in the long term, people come back to tell me, I remember what you said 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I said, oh, what did I say? It's being able to share who you are and what you expect from them.
So when we talk about rallying people as a leader, you talked about your credibility, you talk about spending time with people. A lot of it takes a lot of time to build up as well, right? So how do you think, in your career, like, was it planned, all these steps, or did things fall into place because you just kept doing what you felt you should do at that point in time?
Perhaps it's both. It was a bit of planning and a bit of following your instincts sometimes. That when I was asked by some students how I got there and how I broke the glass ceiling, I said, I had 5 steps in my life. In retrospect, I said, first I had a dream. I dreamt that I could see the world. And second, then I said, if I have a dream, I must have that great desire to achieve the dream. And so that was dream, desire, and I said, then I must follow a certain direction. So that was direction. And when I got to direction means going to the right school, going to study the right subject. And then there were hurdles along the way, like anything else, and that things that you don't expect come through. But I said, I'm determined to get there. So dream, desire, direction, determination. And when I got there, I served with dedication. That's the story of my career, I think.
When did that dream start?
Oh, very early on. My mother was such an avid reader. She never allowed us to go to the movies until we have read the books that she wanted us to read. It was kind of a disciplined life.
That's good.
But I owe it to her that whenever I read books, I remember how I started off seeing and sort of dreaming about the world through the books. And I've kept those books. It's really, everybody in the family read it. It was a book of knowledge. And I remember all the pictures, most of the pictures I saw of places I wanted to see. So it started very early.
So from your dream, you moved on, right? You talked about, what's the next one?
Desire.
Yeah, desire. So how did
Desire,
you
then I
have that
read
desire?
about people who go around the world and seeing the world. In one of the books, I was looking at the word diplomacy. It's funny, but people tell me, so early on, yeah, I was attracted by it.
By the word diplomacy?
Yes, by the word diplomacy. I thought it was a very nice word. But there was another word that I liked. It was journalism.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
So you could have gone either way.
I could have gone either way, yes.
So what got you into diplomacy?
When I entered the university, I knew I was going to take either the course for diplomacy, which was a bachelor's degree in foreign service, or journalism. They were quite related.
Sure.
But then I opted for foreign service because of the number of history subjects that were in there. So when I finished my university education, I thought I was ready to face the world. That's not true. There's a lot of hurdles to face. Number one, they said you're underage, you cannot take the exam. So what did I do? I was very lucky. I was nominated by my university to go to Japan to attend an international student seminar. So that even intensified my interest to go about the world and talking about my country and meeting other people. So I stayed 4 years in Japan. So I learned Japanese language. And when I returned to the Philippines, I said, no, I'm going to make use of these languages. So I had a very, very good start. I was very lucky when I entered the Foreign Service, all because it's being at the right time, the right place, with the right people, but with the right credentials.
Yep.
So when I was asked by my university to introduce the foreign minister at a students' gathering, I said, oh, what a dull background he has. I have to do something about it. So I went upstage and I introduced him first in English, and then I spoke French, and then Japanese. You know, this was the late 60s. People didn't imagine people thinking 3 languages, which I did. And when I came down from the stage, he came to me and he said, I need someone like you who will work in my office who can say no in different languages. So that was my big break.
But when you think of diplomacy, you would hardly think of that. You know, that you need to have that spunk, you need to be spontaneous. Somehow you think of foreign service as...
Because you are relating with people, not just countries, with people. And I realized when I went to Japan that you have to be more or less outspoken. Nobody will really ask you. People are very shy towards each other, but you have to volunteer. And you'll be surprised how you will discover not just yourself, but the others when you start opening a conversation, when you start asking questions. And I think diplomats in general should be asking questions all the time.
Were there people that you worked with, people that you look back now and you realize you stood on their shoulders too? And there were people, I'm sure, who shaped you and helped you. Could you name some of them perhaps?
One of them was Helena Benitez. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She is she's been an educator all her life. And she would be a Girl Scout sitting with us, tying all these knots. And next thing you know, she's talking to the Commission on Status of Women in New York. And, you know, these women didn't bother if this is a small thing or a big thing. It had to be done, and done in a way that you're sharing who you are and your experiences. And then there was a wonderful Senator Shahani, whom I worked with all my life. She recently passed away. She and I worked on the Commission on the Status of Women on the Declaration of Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which was drafted by colleagues of mine. And today I see the impact of this.
So when you talk about women's issues, you've been a champion and you still are a champion. What is it that got you started in this area, or did you face some hurdles at the start of your career that made you say, this is something that I'm going to take on?
Oh yes, I had a big hurdle in my career. Honestly, I didn't feel any discrimination being a woman when I entered the Foreign Service. I believe in taking examinations. But when it came to my decision to get married, I realized that all the women diplomats in the Philippine Foreign Service had to resign when they would marry someone who was not from the same country as the Philippines. However, the men diplomats were allowed to marry anyone they pleased. I said, this is not right. So I went to research and I found out 21 male colleagues married 21 women from different nationalities, including the foreign minister. I said, what will make me different from the rest? Why is it that my colleagues, my women colleagues, lady colleagues, all who wanted to marry a Singaporean, a Malaysian, they all had to resign? I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to challenge it. And I did. And I won. It was blatantly discrimination.
How did you challenge that?
Oh dear, it is a long, tedious process. We were told to write 2 letters, letter of permission to marry and a letter of resignation.
Oh.
The men would be answered, thank you for your letter for permission to marry. You are allowed to marry. For the women, thank you for your letter of resignation. You are allowed to resign. So it was a very tricky way so that they couldn't be perhaps legally charged for discrimination or whatever. I said, no, I am not going to write a letter of resignation. Why should I? What I'm asking is a permission to marry so that I comply with your rule. It's not even a law. It's just a house rule.
Sure.
Of course, one has to think of it. In those days, the Cold War was on. Perhaps it had some implications. But I said, Cold War, somebody married a Russian, somebody married an Eastern European. Where's the Cold War in this? So one argument after the other I had to knock down. And so I said to the Board of Foreign Service, which decides on this, I said, look, you're not putting me in the agenda. I'm going to take you to the United Nations because we ratified the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and I have it all in my favor. Sorry for you guys, it's not going to be easy for you. And so then somebody said, Delia, you're too combative on this. Take it the other way. I said, what?
Oh.
Talk to people. Talk to people. So I said, who should I talk to? And I said, talk to the wife of the foreign minister. She's an American. So I talked to her. I said, Bethday, there's this issue. He said, yeah, I've heard about it. That's awful. I said, yeah, it's terrible. You're allowed to marry the foreign minister, and I'm not allowed to marry my German fiancé. He says, yeah, that's right. I've got to solve this. I'm on your side. So we talked to the foreign minister, and we said, look, this has to be stopped. We have lost so many of our bright young women diplomats because they opted to resign and follow
Their spouses.
the spouses. Some are married to your diplomats in Singapore.
Oh.
By the way. So they opted to follow them. I said, no, I'm going to pursue my career. The reason for this being, well, you'll have problems because he won't be able to follow you. I said, that's a second problem.
Yep.
The first issue here is to be able to be married and have a family. The second choice of where to live and what to do is our choice. So it's not the government's choice. Of course, you have to follow the rules. If he says he cannot go with you to Romania or to Hungary, that's his problem, but not the government's problem. So in the end, I had to go to New York to see the foreign minister because he was there for a UN meeting, and he must have said, this woman will not
He's
stop.
not giving up.
He's not giving up. And so he said, well, young lady, our concern is about the security clearance of your husband. I said, oh, what kind of a clearance do you want? He said, is there somebody who can tell us that he is clear? Or I said, we are all security risks. Circumstances make people security risks. But if you want a piece of paper to say this, fine. So I asked my husband, of course, he's German. He says, what? Of course I'm not a security risk, you know, etc. I said, I know that, but they need a piece of paper and they need somebody to attest to that. Let's compromise. Let's follow what they want. He said, who do you know? He says, oh, well, you know, Rudiger is an old friend. He took over my job. I said, who is Rudiger? Well, he's now the president of the UN General Assembly. And that's one of the reasons we went to New York. And he said, Rudiger, the Philippine government needs a letter saying that I am clear. So I said, oh, that's no problem. You know, here it is. So
that's how you became a president. After you, everyone else could?
Of course, everyone else could. And what was tricky, the department said that this was an exception. I said, no, I don't fight for exceptions. I fight for the principle that any woman should be able to marry whoever she wants and stay in the service. Unless there is something very, very untoward that makes anyone decide that this is not good for the service.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and it
So it wasn't just a love story, right? It was a love story plus a principle. So you're a real champion for gender equality. What are some issues you think today that are still prevalent or that still needs to be fought?
Well,
on front of leadership.
Leadership. You know, when I got home and I returned home after I retired and I was told to continue serving the country, where do you start? I started with a newspaper, and I saw in the newspaper the story of 4 women who were CEOs of car companies in the Philippines. I said, wow, this is great. I want to meet all of them. So I invited them to lunch, and we had lunch. And the lunch started at 12 and ended at 3 or 4 o'clock. And I said, I'm so happy for all of you that but you know, I said, ladies, the world doesn't know about you. The world knows a different picture about the Filipino woman. That the Filipino woman is ready to be subservient all the time and sometimes taken advantage of. And I've met a lot of these cases. But I want to show the half full glass, and I want the world to know about you. And I tell you, they had wonderful ideas how to do it. So today, from that group, and another group that was thinking the same way in the other part of town, we got together, and the team of 4, 5 is now a team of 45. 45 women CEOs. I said, I know that you're doing very well here, but the world doesn't know about you. And I'm very familiar with the world. I've been to 58 countries in my life as a diplomat. So people don't hear about you. There is a World Economic Forum Gender Equality Index that ranks the Philippines very highly. But how many people read that or know about it? What they see is what they experience on a day-to-day basis. So I said, I want you to be the other face that I would like people to know about the country.
So you're doing this so people will have to understand Philippines a bit deeper, a bit more.
And more balanced picture. Since I formed this group, I've been asked to speak to schools and to motivate the young women, not just to be resigned to do very menial things, but to aspire to do more, to get more educated, to learn skills. And I've seen this at work in some of our posts where, like in Dubai, a lot of the first group of women that went there, they were all low-paying jobs. But for them, it's better than the paying jobs at home, because then they're able to send back home, etc. But people forget the social costs of this, of families being separated. And I've seen that so closely in all my postings. So we had a team of wonderful young women in Dubai, and there were 2 or 3 sisters who were lawyers, etc., but they were doing menial jobs. And so I said, what can we do? They said, add skills, computer. So what did they do? I established a halfway house for women who were not treated well and who had nothing to do. I said, computer learning. You have had basic education. You can learn the computer. Oh, this was about 20 years ago. And can you imagine, today many of them who started there are secretaries to big companies. First, because they know English. Second, because they're computer literate. And this is something I think that technology has helped a lot. And can you imagine if, like in Australia, where I was ambassador, and this young woman marries somebody digging in the mines. She thought he was a real super miner. So she ended up cleaning the airport in an old hick town somewhere. But she learned to type the computer. She was a school teacher. So she had the basic education that could be supplemented by some technical knowledge. 20 years later to the date that she started as a cleaning woman in the bathroom of the small airport, she became the airport manager. Those stories I tell women around whom I meet and said, don't resign yourself to this. There's more to life than doing these things. Of course you can do it, but if you want to move ahead...
If you have a desire, don't stop yourself. So that's your message really for women. When you fight for gender equality, it's really about not holding yourself back?
Not holding yourself back. The world has so many opportunities there. But you have to gear yourself towards improving yourself.
What are some of the key issues that women leaders need to fight or need to work on, say, moving forward? We've come a long way from where you talked about.
You know what I found very interesting when I formed this group of women CEOs? Every one of them were prepared to do mentoring, which is sharing. And so we go to schools and we invite young people to sit together, but not just women. Also, I think we include the men so that they understand what's going in the minds of their counterparts. And I always say, be inclusive.
So from championing gender inequality and women's issues, the other thing you talked about earlier is ASEAN.
Yes. Oh, my favorite subject. You know, I started my career in 1967. I'm as old as ASEAN in the Foreign Service.
Yeah. So as a leader, I mean, someone who's been in the diplomatic corps, what do you think it's critical as a leader when you're leading an organization or a country? What kind of stand, what drives you to make a certain stand and to say...
Well, I think like in any leadership situation, you have to be a credible person. And people rally around you if you're a person of credibility, of integrity. To me, those are very essential. Leaders also have to be flexible in a way that you can understand why people behave the way they do, or people adopt the policies that they do. But it doesn't mean that you accept that. But you have to be flexible enough to make room. And I think this is the Asian way. We make room to understand this and to avoid, we mitigate conflict rather than perhaps address the conflict. So that may be cynical again, but that's how I see it. We mitigate, we try to avoid these situations.
A blowout or a confrontation.
And to avoid, and to me this has been what has kept ASEAN going.
Even if it takes longer.
Even if it takes longer. And you see the result? I mean, this is a region of prosperity. the peace and stability that we have attained all these years gave us the possibility to improve at least a great number of the lives of the people in the region. Perhaps not everybody, there are still many lagging behind, but we should not also fall into this situation that we are pulled back, but instead bring up those who are lagging behind.
We've talked about your careers and the many things that you've done. I'm sure there were challenges in there, really difficult moments. What was a key challenge that you faced?
As foreign minister, the biggest issue that I had to deal with was to save a life. We had a Filipino truck driver in Iraq, and one morning at 3 a.m., the president calls me and says, "Delia, you have to come to the palace because there's a Filipino truck driver who's going to be beheaded in 12 hours if we do not withdraw the 48 military people in Iraq." We were part of the coalition of the willing, okay, when the US and Britain organized this CAUS, they call it, Coalition of the Willing. So we sent 200 troops, and they're supposed to be civilian troops, but they're troops anyway. And after some months, we would start withdrawing them. And this was a month and a half before the whole program would finish. So there were 48 left.
Sure.
And what the people who took this man as a hostage said, "We will release him only if you withdraw your troops from Iraq." And you know, it was a very unpopular decision anyway. People didn't want to send troops, but it was a political commitment to allies, you know how it is. But it was 48 men, and a month and a half before they would really leave. And this man was put on television. They will cut his head on television to warn everybody to get out of Iraq. And I rushed to the palace 3 a.m. and brought my crisis team together. We drafted, if we do this, this is the consequence. If we don't do this, this is the consequence. So we presented to the president. Time was ticking. 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, so we had those a.m. And the president left the room. And I said, "Madam President, these are the choices, but it needs the decision of the president and the security group that was gathered there." And she disappeared. She came back and she said, "Option this, we save him." And I said, "Madam President, how?" And the big decision she made was, because we were being criticized, Australia said we had a marshmallow foreign policy, we yield to this people. But Filipinos would go to the streets if we say, "Go ahead, kill him." So we started the negotiations, and Australia comes with a Philippine foreign policy is marshmallow foreign policy. US said something else. So I called the US ambassador, "Mr. Ambassador, remember we are an independent country. You must respect our sovereign decision. Whatever we decide, it's a sovereign decision. This will unwind the coalition of the willing, etc., etc." I said, "Sorry, this is one time. This is the decision." So I went on television because we don't know who the hostage takers were. They will only communicate by television. And I was the only one I was introduced to talk to them. So that was tough. And so I said, "Do not do it in 12 hours. We cannot do this in 12 hours. We have to stagger." Then they came back and they said, it took some time, and they said, all right, as long as you get them out. But in the meantime, I had to develop my support links, and there's so much in you that comes out. But in the end, I think your stamina, your clearness of mind, your determination comes out. Your sense of humanity comes out. So much of it, of you, comes out. How you would handle this. There are no textbooks to guide you, but you are there to save this man. And when I got him out, I was physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted.
But that's also the very essence of what leadership is, isn't it? That you affect lives.
Yeah. And your sense of, to me, it was a sense of humanity that you put in all of yourself to it. Yeah. But at the same time, you're grateful for what has built you up. And what was, for me, also important was a call from our ambassador in Brussels, congratulating me that this thing. I said, do you know, Ambassador, Madam Secretary, I said, that when you decided to save him, there was a meeting of NATO. They were worried that it will break the thing out. And they asked the Americans sitting there, and they said, what do you think about the Philippines withdrawing? He said, well, they made a sovereign decision and we should respect it. I said, hey, that sounds familiar. You know, and this is what I tell my young diplomats. I said, you must know your position well, and you must be able to articulate it well, and you must be convinced. Otherwise, you will lose your way.